AITA for always putting my boobs on the table. They are very big. It all started like any other normal week for our Dungeons and Dragons group. For the past year or so, we've been meeting up every Friday evening to continue our campaign, and it's honestly become one of the highlights of my week. It's a group of about 8 of us, and we all get along really well. We've got a good mix. Most of us are lifelong friends, and the camaraderie we've built over years just adds to the fun. D&D nights aren't just about rolling dice. They're about laughing at each other's terrible decision-making skills, strategizing on how to take down a menacing boss, and bonding over mutual victories and hilarious failures. We've always met at our friend A's place. As the dungeon master, has his whole setup there, a fancy gaming table with a recessed middle where we keep all our stuff. He even made this whole setup himself, with a leaf that goes over the recessed part when we're not playing, so we never have to put our things away. Honestly, it's brilliant, and it makes setting up every week that much easier. A's also got a fiancée, let's call her Emily. Emily recently moved in with A, and while she's always been around, she hadn't really hung out with us much. She's cool, don't get me wrong, but we just run in different circles and have different interests. I think it's safe to say she doesn't really click with our group. We're all pretty into the fantasy stuff, role-playing games, and generally all the nerdy things that have bonded us over the years, while she's more into other hobbies and has her own group of friends. Nothing wrong with that, but it meant she never really hung out during game night before. However, since moving in, Emily started spending more time around us. She started joining us during our sessions not as a player, but just to hang out. She'd sit in the room, watching for a bit or just playing on her phone. At first, no one really thought anything of it. We're all pretty chill, and it wasn't like she was disrupting anything, just kind of being there. I got the feeling she wanted to understand A's interests more, which seemed like a nice effort on her part. I didn't mind, and I don't think anyone else did either. Now, let me get to something that's relevant here. I'm not exactly a small-chested woman. I'm in my late 20s, about 5 feet 4 inches and around 155 pounds, and I've got H-cup breasts. They're definitely noticeable, and, honestly, they've been a huge pain for most of my life. They draw attention whether I want it or not, and they're heavy, uncomfortable, and painful sometimes. I'm actually in the process of getting a breast reduction. I have already started the consultation process, and I can't wait to get this weight off my chest, literally. It's something that affects my day-to-day life, and D&D night is no exception. Here's the thing about E's table, it's got that recessed middle part, and because of the way it's set up, you need to lean forward or even stand up to move your character pieces. And if you've got a larger chest, leaning forward can be a whole ordeal. My boobs always end up squishing against the side of the table, and after a while, it gets really uncomfortable. Not just uncomfortable, sometimes it gets genuinely painful. I know it probably sounds silly, but having that pressure on your chest for hours at a time isn't exactly pleasant. So, I started doing something that helped. I lift myself up a little and kind of rest my boobs on the edge of the table when I need to move my character or reach for something in the middle. It's not like I'm making a show of it. I just subtly adjust myself so I'm not in pain. It allows me to lean forward without my boobs being crushed against the edge of the table. It's not a big deal, or at least I never thought it was. It's something I do without even thinking about it now, kind of like how you might adjust your seatbelt if it's uncomfortable across your chest. I've been doing it for months, and no one's ever said anything. I honestly didn't think anyone even noticed. That was until last week. Last week, we were about halfway through our session. It was a pretty typical night. We'd gotten ourselves into a tricky situation with some orcs, and we were trying to strategize our way out of it. Everyone was focused, leaning in, and rolling dice. I was in my usual spot, sitting between 2 of our other friends, leaning forward slightly to move my character on the map, with my chest resting on the edge of the table. Everything was normal, and we were all having fun, when suddenly Emily, who was sitting on the couch in the corner of the room, just snapped. "Can you put your boobs away?" she practically shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter in the room. "No one cares, okay? You don't need to put yourself on display like that." For a second, I didn't even realize she was talking to me. The whole room went silent, and everyone just kind of looked around in confusion. It wasn't until she pointed directly at me at my chest that I realized she was talking to me. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. I've never, in all the months we've been playing, thought that what I was doing was inappropriate or attention-seeking. I felt my face go red, and I stammered out something about just trying to get comfortable, but she wasn't having it. Emily went off. She accused me of trying to show off, of trying to draw attention to myself, and she called me names, slut, show off, all sorts of things. The rest of the group was just as stunned as I was. I tried to calm her down, telling her that she was overreacting, but she was furious. She kept going, saying that it was disrespectful to her and that she didn't want me coming over to their house anymore if I was going to act like that. It was humiliating. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, and I didn't know how to react. I tried to explain that it wasn't what she thought, that I was literally just trying to be comfortable because leaning forward hurt my chest, but she wouldn't listen. She kept saying that I was making excuses and that no one wanted to see it. Eventually, I ended up ending the night early because the tension was just too much, and everyone awkwardly packed up their stuff and left. I was mortified. I've been part of this group for a long time, and I've never had anything like this happen. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head, wondering if maybe I'd done something wrong without realizing it. I talked to some of the other members of the group afterward, and they were supportive. They said that they didn't think I was doing anything wrong, and that Emily was out of line. But it still didn't help the knot of anxiety in my stomach. The next day, I texted and apologized. I told him I didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable, and that I'd try to be more mindful of it in the future. I even told Emily that I was sorry, and explained that I was planning to get a breast reduction next year, hoping she'd understand that this wasn't some kind of attention-seeking behavior. It was just me trying to manage a genuinely uncomfortable situation. But she wasn't having any of it. She called me names again, said I was making excuses, and told me I was no longer welcome at their house. She also told her that she didn't want him being friends with me anymore. I feel awful. He's been my friend for years, and this whole thing is putting a huge strain on him too. He's caught in the middle. He's trying to keep the peace with his fiancée, but I can tell he doesn't think I did anything wrong either. The rest of the group is also in a weird spot. We're all friends, and this incident has created this massive rift. No one knows what to do. I've tried to think of other ways to handle it, maybe finding another way to lean in, or standing up every time I need to move my character, but honestly, the table is designed in such a way that there aren't a lot of options, and I can't help but feel like I shouldn't have to contort myself into uncomfortable positions just because someone else has an issue with my body. I wish Emily could understand that this isn't about me trying to show off or get attention. It's just about me being comfortable and trying to enjoy a game with my friends. I wish she'd listen when I tried to explain. I've never wanted to make anyone uncomfortable, and now I'm questioning every little thing I do, wondering if I'm somehow sending the wrong message without realizing it. I don't know what's going to happen now. The rest of the group is trying to figure out a way for us to keep playing, but without A's place, it's complicated. His setup is perfect for our games, and none of us really have a comparable space. Plus, it feels wrong to just kick out of his own campaign. He's the DM, and this is his story. We all want him to be part of it. But at the same time, I don't want to keep showing up somewhere I'm clearly not wanted. A few days passed after the last game night, and things were still up in the air. I wasn't sure what to expect, but then a message popped up in our group chat. It was A. He was inviting everyone back to his place to continue the campaign, as if nothing had happened. He said he didn't want to let a single disagreement derail something we all enjoyed, and he emphasized that he'd spoken to his fiancée, assuring us it was okay. I felt a strange mix of emotions reading his message. Part of me was relieved. We'd all grown so much together as a group, and I didn't want to lose that. But at the same time, I was anxious. I wasn't sure if his fiancée, let's call her Hannah, would truly be okay with me being there. The things she said still stung, and I wasn't sure how genuine her acceptance would be. On the day of the session, I decided to go, mostly for the group and the campaign. I prepared myself mentally. I know I wanted to be more cautious and keep a low profile. When I arrived at A's house, everyone was already there, laughing and chatting as if the incident from last week had never happened. I walked in, greeted everyone, and received a warm welcome from A and the others, which helped calm my nerves. Hannah was there too, sitting on the couch behind us, on her phone as usual. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes meeting mine for a second. She gave me a polite smile, but I could feel the tension. I sat down and tried to focus on the game, hoping to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. I got right into DM mode, and the game kicked off. We were deep in a dungeon, and the atmosphere was alive with excitement. People were making jokes, rolling dice, and getting into character. I tried to stay as discreet as possible when leaning forward to move my character piece on the map, being extra careful with my posture so as not to press against the edge of the table. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, everyone was having fun, and even Hannah seemed to be in a good mood, occasionally laughing at our jokes. For a while, I thought we might actually get through the night without any drama. But after about an hour, things took a turn. We were in the middle of a big battle, and I had to reach forward to move my mini. Despite my efforts to be cautious, it happened again. My chest lightly touched the table edge. I quickly adjusted myself, but not quickly enough. I saw Hannah glance over, her eyes narrowing slightly. She didn't say anything right away, but I could feel the shift in her demeanor. A few moments later, in a lull in the game, Hannah suddenly spoke up, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Hey, could we get a new player name for the table? How about Busty the Brave? Seems fitting." The room went quiet, everyone froze, and I felt my face go hot. I tried to laugh it off, but the discomfort in the room was palpable. I looked at her, clearly taken aback. "Hannah, seriously," he said, trying to defuse the situation. But she wasn't done. She turned directly to me, her voice taking on an edge. "You know, if you're going to come here, maybe pick a bra that actually fits you so your boobs aren't, like, slapping the table. It's distracting." She said it with a kind of half-smile, like she was pretending it was a joke, but the underlying hostility was clear. I didn't know what to say. I looked at her, who was visibly uncomfortable, but Hannah wasn't backing down. "We live here together," she continued, "so I think it's fair if I ask for a little respect in my own house. If you can't figure that out, then maybe you shouldn't come back." Aside, clearly frustrated, "Hannah, come on, this is my campaign too. Everyone's here because they want to play," but she shook her head, crossing her arms. "Yeah, but it's my home too. If she's going to keep putting things on display, she should at least make an effort to hold them up. Or better yet, come in a different bra next time." I was mortified. I glanced around the table. The guys were all avoiding eye contact, clearly not wanting to get involved. I felt a knot in my throat, and I just wanted to shrink away. But there was no escape. She was waiting for an answer. I tried to intervene again, but she just waved him off. "No, I mean it," she said, turning back to me. "If you want to keep coming, you need to control it. Hold them up or whatever while you're moving your piece. It's just distracting otherwise." I didn't want to escalate things, so I swallowed my pride and nodded. "Okay," I mumbled, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be more careful." She seemed satisfied with that, leaning back into the couch with a triumphant smile. The rest of the game was a blur. I felt humiliated, holding my arm awkwardly across my chest whenever I leaned forward, trying to do what she'd asked. My heart wasn't in it anymore. I just wanted to get through the session and leave. I kept glancing at me with an apologetic look, clearly uncomfortable with how things had played out, but he was stuck between me and his fiancée. When the game finally ended, I was the first to leave. I made a beeline for the door, giving a quick thanks for hosting before slipping out. I could hear Hannah's voice behind me, still laughing and chatting with the others as if nothing had happened. It was like she'd won some kind of victory, and it made me feel even smaller. A few days passed, and I tried to push the whole incident out of my mind, but it lingered like an uncomfortable weight. I wasn't sure what would happen with our D&D sessions. I loved playing with this group, but after Hannah's outburst, I wasn't sure if I could bring myself to go back. The idea of sitting there again, under her scrutinizing gaze, filled me with a kind of quiet dread. Then, I got a message from A. He was reaching out to see how I was doing, and to my surprise, he wrote that he really hoped I would come to the next session. "I miss having you there," he said. "It's not the same without everyone. I know things got awkward, but I want us to have fun again. Please think about it." His words brought me some comfort. It felt like a small bridge being extended, and I realized that I missed the games too. I missed the camaraderie, the adventures, and the stories we built together. I hesitated for a while but finally replied that I'd come. The day of the next session, I was determined not to let things go the way they had before. I went out to a store and spent more time than I'd like to admit trying to find a bra that might help avoid another confrontation. I finally picked one that promised more support. It was a bit tighter than I liked, but I hoped it would do the trick. When I arrived at A's house, there was an awkward tension at first. I smiled at A, and he gave me a small, relieved grin. Hannah was in the kitchen when I got there, and when she saw me, she gave a smile that looked more forced than friendly. "Glad you could make it," she said. "And glad you decided to, dress appropriately this time." Her eyes lingered pointedly on my chest. I just nodded and forced a smile. "Yeah, no problem." We all settled in, and for the first hour or so, things were going well. I focused on the game, trying to get back into character and enjoy myself. A's storytelling was as engaging as ever, and I could tell the others were having a good time. I even started to feel like maybe things were getting back to normal. But the bra was incredibly tight. As the minutes ticked by, it dug into my skin, making it harder to concentrate. I tried to adjust subtly, but it wasn't really helping. Finally, during a break, I excused myself to the bathroom. I just needed a few minutes of relief. Once I was in there, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I unclasped the bra and took a deep breath, feeling the tension release. I stuffed it into my bag, figuring I'd just be careful for the rest of the game. It couldn't be that big of a deal, right? When I got back to the table, I felt better, lighter even. We continued playing, and for a little while, I thought everything would be okay. But then, I caught Hannah's eyes narrowing at me. She was watching me closely, her gaze drifting to my chest again. I tried to ignore it and focus on my character's next move, but I could feel her staring. Finally, she spoke up, her voice dripping with condescension. "Really? You couldn't even keep it on for one session?" She rolled her eyes and let out an exasperated sigh. "I mean, come on, are you really that desperate for attention?" I froze, my face heating up as everyone at the table turned to look at us. I cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Hannah, let's just focus on the game, okay?" But she wasn't having it. She leaned forward, her eyes still on me. "No. This is my house too. If she's going to be here, she needs to respect some basic boundaries." I asked her to wear something appropriate, and clearly, she can't even manage that. I felt a lump forming in my throat, and I tried to think of something to say, but the words wouldn't come. I glanced at A, hoping he'd step in, but he looked torn, his eyes shifting between me and Hannah. Then, something seemed to shift in A's expression. He took a deep breath and looked directly at Hannah. "Hannah, enough. This is getting ridiculous." Hannah blinked, clearly taken aback. "What?" "This is my game, and these are my friends," I said, his voice steady. "I want everyone to feel comfortable here, including her. You've made your point, but I'm not going to let you keep making her feel unwelcome. If you can't let it go, then maybe you should take a break from the session." There was a stunned silence around the table. Hannah's face flushed, and for a moment, I thought she was going to explode. But instead, she stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Fine," she snapped. "Have your little game." She turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was thick and awkward. I stared down at the table, feeling a mix of relief and embarrassment. I let out a long breath, then looked around at everyone. "Sorry about that, guys. Let's just keep going, okay?" The rest of the group nodded, and slowly, the atmosphere started to ease. We picked up where we left off, and Ed did his best to draw us back into the story. It took a little while, but eventually, the mood lifted, and I found myself laughing again, genuinely this time. The others followed suit, and soon, it felt like we were back on track. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, like a weight had been lifted from the room. For the rest of the night, we played without interruption. I made sure to be careful, leaning forward only when necessary, but I didn't let it bother me as much. I kept the game moving smoothly, and the others rallied around, clearly wanting to keep things positive. By the end of the session, we were all smiling, and I even felt a sense of hope maybe we could move past this after all. As we were packing up, I pulled me aside. "I'm really sorry about all of that," he said quietly. "I don't want you to feel like you're not welcome here. You're part of this group, and I'm glad you came." I gave him a small smile. "Thanks, I appreciate it. I hope things can get better." "They will," he said, nodding. "I'll make sure of it." Am I AITA for always putting my boobs on the table?